The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. It floated in space above the neutral world of Verith Prime, a massive station where 37 different species came together to rule the galaxy. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed inside it. The walls were made of a strange metal that seemed to glow with its own light, and the seats rose up in circles one above another, so that anyone standing at the center had to look up at everyone else. Ambassador Daniel Porter stood at that center now, feeling exactly as small as the builders had intended. He was a man of 53 years, with gray hair at his temples and lines on his face that spoke of too many difficult negotiations. He had spent his whole life learning how to talk to people, how to find common ground, how to solve problems with words instead of weapons. But looking up at the alien faces staring down at him, he wondered if any of that would matter today. Beside him stood Commander Lisa Grant, naval officer with short dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was there as his military advisor, though both of them hoped her expertise would not be needed. They had come to talk, not to fight. High Arbiter Zolanth sat on the highest platform, looking down at the humans with 4 pale eyes. He was a Morthani, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and his kind had helped create the Council 12,000 years ago. His skin was gray and smooth, stretched tight over a skull that was longer than any human skull. When he spoke, his voice came from somewhere deep in his chest and echoed through the chamber. "You come before this council seeking recognition," Zolanth said. "Yet humanity has been traveling among the stars for only 200 of your years. The Valoria waited 3,000 years before they were allowed to speak here. The Kreth waited 4,000. Tell me, human, why should we treat you any differently?" Daniel had prepared for this question. He had practiced his answer many times on the long journey here. He kept his voice calm and respectful, even though his heart was beating fast. "High Arbiter, we do not come seeking a seat on the council. We come seeking fair treatment. In the past 10 years, human colonies have been attacked by raiders. These raiders operate from space that the council controls. Our merchant ships have been seized. Our people have been killed. When we asked for help through proper channels, no one answered us." A murmur went through the chamber. Some of the aliens shifted in their seats. Others leaned forward with interest. "These are serious claims," said Counselor Mira of the Telvanni. She was a tall being with blue skin and large black eyes that seemed to see everything. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their knowledge of law and justice. "Do you have proof?" "We do." Daniel nodded to Lisa, who touched a device on her wrist. Images appeared in the air above them, glowing holograms that showed destroyed ships, lists of dead humans, and copies of messages that had been sent to the council and never answered. 17 attacks, 462 human deaths, 23 formal complaints, 0 responses. The chamber grew quiet. Even the most hostile faces showed some surprise at the evidence floating before them. High Arbiter, Zolanth, blinked his 4 eyes slowly. "These events are unfortunate. However, humanity is not a member of the Galactic Council. Our laws protect member species. They do not extend to others. Then make us members," Lisa said, stepping forward. Daniel gave her a warning look, but she ignored it. "If membership is what it takes to protect our people, then give us membership." Laughter erupted from one section of the chamber. It came from the Kreth, a species of massive insect-like beings with hard shells covering their bodies and sharp claws on their hands. Their leader, General Vorthok, rose from his seat. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, and his shell was scarred from many battles. A species that has not proven itself in war demands membership? Vorthok made a clicking sound with his mouth parts that seemed to express amusement. A species with no territory worth mentioning? A species that breeds like insects on a single arm of a minor galaxy. This is comedy, not diplomacy. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, but he had spent a lifetime learning to control such feelings. He kept his voice steady. "We did not come here to be insulted, General. We came to find a peaceful solution." "Peace," Vorthok clicked again. "Humanity talks about peace because it cannot talk about strength. Your ships are primitive toys. Your weapons are inefficient. You have nothing to offer this council except your amusing stubbornness. General Vorthok, Zollanth interrupted. Your comments are not helpful. They are honest, Vorthok replied, and honesty serves better than pretending. Let the humans go back to their corner of space and grow for another 1,000 years. Maybe then they will have something worth saying. Daniel stood very still. He thought about the families on the colony of New Harmony, killed by raiders, while the council did nothing. He thought about Captain Samuel Kent, whose last message was a desperate call for help that nobody answered. He thought about all the humans who had died because the galaxy considered them unimportant. Hi, Arbiter, Daniel said slowly. I ask one final time. Will the council protect human colonies and trade routes? Zalant's expression did not change. The council cannot protect non-members. This is our law. Will the council give humanity temporary membership while our full application is reviewed? Such temporary status has never been given to a species at your stage of development. The answer is no. Daniel nodded. He had expected this. He had hoped for something different, but he had expected exactly this. Then I must inform the council that the human delegation is leaving these peace talks. Surprise rippled through the chamber. Counselor Mira leaned forward. Ambassador Porter, please reconsider. Walking away from diplomacy rarely leads to good results. We have not walked away from diplomacy, Daniel replied, gathering his materials. The council has. You have made it clear that human lives do not matter to you. You have told us that we will receive no justice and no protection through these meetings. We see no reason to continue begging for help from those who will never give it, and what will humanity do instead? Vorthok asked, his voice full of contempt. Hide in your little corner of space and feel sorry for yourselves. Daniel paused at the door of the chamber. He turned back, and for the first time, his diplomatic mask fell away. What the council saw beneath it made several of them feel suddenly uncomfortable. We will do what humans have always done when diplomacy fails, General. We will survive. And you might want to remember something about my species. We are very, very good at surviving. He and Lisa walked out of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the silence they left behind. The council members looked at each other. A few seemed troubled by what had just happened. Most simply shrugged and moved on to other business. The humans were a minor species with primitive technology and no real power. Their departure from the peace talks was slightly unusual, perhaps even slightly dramatic, but it changed nothing at least. That is what they believed. They could not have been more wrong. 3 months passed after the human delegation walked out of the council chamber. During those 3 months, the Galactic Council mostly forgot about humanity. There were more important things to worry about. The Telvanni and the Zoroth Collective were arguing about borders again. Several species wanted new mining rights in a distant nebula. The usual business of running a galaxy kept everyone busy. High Arbiter Zollanth did order a routine report on human space. It was standard procedure, nothing more. The intelligence services gathered information and delivered their findings. Human military forces were small. Their technology was at least 50 years behind Council standards. Their economy was modest. They posed no threat to anyone. General Vorthok reviewed the report and made a dismissive sound. They are building a few more ships, organizing their colonies into some kind of defense network. These are normal reactions from a frightened species. They will come crawling back to us within a year, much more humble than before. But Vorthok had made a terrible mistake. He had measured human capabilities. He had not measured human nature. In the months following the failed peace talks, something had changed in human space. Ambassador Daniel Porter had returned home not as a diplomat who had failed, but as a witness who had seen the truth. He spoke before the United Earth Parliament. His words were broadcast to every colony, every space station, every ship in human territory. They laughed at us, he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were hard as stone. They called us vermin. They told us that our dead did not matter. The reaction was not what the council would have predicted. Humans did not fall into despair. They did not turn against each other in fear or break apart into fighting groups. Instead, something very old woke up inside them. It was something written into their blood by thousands of years of surviving against possible odds. They got angry. President Catherine Walsh spoke to the entire species 3 days later. She was a former naval captain, a woman in her 60s with iron gray hair and a voice that could command a room without raising itself. She had been elected to develop colonies and improve trade. She had never expected to become a wartime leader. But she had studied human history, and she understood something that the Council did not. "They believe we are weak because we tried to make peace," she said. "They believe we are primitive because our ships are smaller and our weapons are less advanced. They have forgotten something that every enemy of humanity has eventually learned. We do not need to be stronger than our enemies. We only need to be more stubborn." The Human Defense Initiative passed without a single vote against it. Every resource was redirected toward a single goal. Scientists working on theoretical research were given unlimited money and told to make their theories real. Engineers who had designed merchant ships began designing warships. Soldiers who had never expected to see combat began training for a war that seemed more likely every day. And in the shadows, the intelligence services began their own work. Commander Lisa Grant had been promoted to admiral and placed in charge of a new division called Strategic Operations. She stood before a glowing map of Council space, surrounded by the officers who would fight the war if it came to that. "We cannot win a direct fight," she said bluntly. "The Kreth alone have more warships than our entire fleet. The Valori have technology we do not even understand. And the Council has 37 member species. Most of them could crush us without trying." "Then why are we here?" asked Captain Raymond Hall. He was a young officer whose home colony had been attacked by raiders. He had lost family in those attacks. "What is the point of all this?" Lisa smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "The point, Captain, is that we are not going to fight them directly. We are going to fight them the way humans have always fought stronger enemies. We are going to cheat." She brought up a series of files on the display. "For the past 10 years, our intelligence services have been mapping Council space. Not just the obvious things like military bases and trade routes. We have been mapping infrastructure, supply lines, communication networks, the political tensions between different species, or talking about unconventional warfare," said Commander Patricia Morrison. "Who ran naval intelligence? I am talking about making them regret every insult they ever threw at us. The Council thinks of war as big fleet battles and conquering territory. They have been fighting the same way for 12,000 years. They have no idea how to deal with what we are going to do." Over the following 6 months, human agents spread throughout Council space. They pretended to be merchants, refugees, technical advisors. They all had good reasons to be where they were. Nobody suspected them. They planted sensors on communication stations. They mapped patrol routes and found weaknesses. They made friends with criminals and political troublemakers in every species. And they waited. The Council noticed nothing. Their intelligence services were designed to spot threats from enemies they knew about. Humanity was not considered an enemy. Humanity was barely considered at all. But Counselor Myra of the Telvanni noticed something strange. As the Council's legal expert, she had access to trade information from across the galaxy. The numbers had started to change in small ways. Human merchant activity in Council space has increased by 40% in the past 6 months. She reported at a Council meeting. Most members barely listened. Their ships are everywhere. They carry legal cargo. They pay all required fees. And why does this concern you? "Hi, Arbiter," Zolanth asked. "This makes no economic sense. They are losing money on every trip. Their merchants are not making profit. They are spending money just to be here." General Vorthok waved a claw. "Perhaps they are simply bad at business. That would match everything else we know about them." Mira said nothing more at the meeting. But she began her own quiet investigation. What she discovered would eventually save many lives. But by then, it would be far too late to stop what was coming. Meanwhile, on Earth, the shipyards worked day and night. New designs rolled off the production lines. They were not bigger ships or more powerful ships. They were smarter ships. Built for a different kind of war. President Walsh visited one of the shipyards and watched. a new destroyer being completed. Admiral Grant stood beside her. "How long until we are ready?" the president asked. 6 more months for full capability. But we could begin preliminary operations now if needed. And the council? Do they suspect anything? Lisa shook her head. They think we are sulking in our corner of space, licking our wounds. They have no idea what is coming. Walsh looked at the sleek destroyer floating in its construction dock. Hundreds of workers moved around it like ants, finishing the final systems. It was beautiful in its way, this machine built for war. "I wanted peace," she said quietly. "I still want peace. But I have learned something in these months. Some people only understand peace when it is backed by the ability to make war. The council would not listen to our words. Perhaps they will listen to our actions." "They will listen," Lisa promised. "One way or another, they will listen." Far away, in the council chamber, General Vorthok was telling a joke about human weakness. The other military leaders laughed. The joke was very funny. They would not be laughing much longer. The first strike came, without any warning at all. It was not a military attack. No human warships flew into council space. No weapons were fired. No bombs exploded. Instead, a single package of information was sent to every major news network in the galaxy at exactly the same moment. The package contained evidence. There were financial records showing that high-ranking Kreth military officers had been taking bribes from the raider groups that attacked human colonies. There were copies of communications proving that the Council's refusal to help humanity was not simple bureaucratic slowness. It was a deliberate plan to weaken humans before they could become a threat. There were statements from captured raiders naming their contacts in the Kreth military. The council session that followed was pure chaos. "This is a lie," General Vorthok roared. His massive body shook with fury. Human propaganda designed to destroy Kreth's reputation. "The financial records have authentication codes that independent experts have verified," Counselor Mira replied calmly. "The communications use encryption methods that only Kreth Military Command has access to. Unless you are suggesting that humans have broken Kreth military encryption, that would itself be a remarkable statement about human capabilities." High Arbiter Zolanth tried to restore order. "This matter requires investigation. Until such investigation is complete, no one should draw conclusions." But it was too late for calm responses. The Telvanni, who had lost several of their own ships to the same raiders, demanded answers. The Zorith Collective, who had long competed with the Kreth for power, used the scandal to push for punishments. Species that had been quietly neutral began taking sides, and while the council tore itself apart with arguments, the second strike landed. Throughout council space, key communication relay stations went dark at the same moment. They were not destroyed. They were simply offline. Their computer systems infected by malicious code that had been planted there months. Earlier by human agents pretending to be technicians, the disruption lasted only 6 hours before backup systems came online. But in those 6 hours, the Council's ability to coordinate was badly damaged. Emergency messages were delayed. Fleet movements went untracked. Financial transactions failed to process. When the systems came back online, the damage was assessed. It was not catastrophic, but it was deeply embarrassing. And it proved something that many had refused to believe. Humans could reach into the heart of council space and strike whenever they wanted. Admiral Meltz Grant watched the chaos unfold from the safety of human space. Her expression was thoughtful as she studied the reports coming in. "Phase 2 complete," she reported to President Walsh. "Council unity is breaking down faster than we expected. The Kreth are politically isolated. The Telvanni are demanding reform. And everyone is wondering what we will do next." "What will we do next?" Lisa brought up a new display. "We wait. Let them stew in uncertainty. Every day they spend arguing with each other is a day our shipyards keep building. Every hour they spend looking over their shoulders is an hour our agents gather more information, and the military option. Still a last resort. But if it comes to that, we are ready. The new ship designs are in production. The crews are trained, and we have identified 17 strategic targets that would cripple Council logistics if we took them offline at the same time. President Walsh studied the display for a long moment. We started this wanting recognition. Fair treatment. How did we become the ones causing trouble? We are not troublemakers, ma'am. We are survivors. The Council made it clear they would never see us as equals. They made it clear our lives meant nothing to them. We are simply teaching them that there are consequences for thinking that way. On the Council station, High Arbiter Xalanth called an emergency meeting with the military commanders of the 5 most powerful member species. The meeting was classified at the highest level. Only those present knew what was discussed. We have underestimated the humans, Xalanth admitted. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. The question is, how to fix that error. Destroy them, Vorthok said immediately. A show of overwhelming force will teach them their place. Show of force against what? Asked Admiral Saren of the Valori. She was tall and thin, with skin so pale it was almost transparent. Her species was ancient and wise, and she had seen many. Wars? They have committed no act of war. They released information that was true. They disrupted systems without killing anyone. If we attack them now, we become the aggressors in the eyes of the galaxy. Then what would you suggest? We give them what they originally asked for, said Counselor Myra, who had been invited despite not being a military commander. Recognition, protection. A seat at this table. Vorthok made a sound of utter disgust. Reward them for their behavior? That would encourage every minor species in the galaxy to try the same tricks. Perhaps, Mira replied, or perhaps it would prevent this situation from getting worse. The humans have proven they can hurt us without firing a single shot. What do you think they will do if we push them into a corner? The question hung in the air. No one answered it, but everyone heard it. Meanwhile, in human space, preparations continued. New ships were completed. New weapons were tested. New plans were made. The agents scattered throughout Council space continued their work, gathering information, building networks. Preparing for whatever came next, Daniel Porter, the ambassador who had walked out of the Council chamber, now served as the chief advisor to President Walsh on Council affairs. He spent his days studying reports and his nights wondering if there had been any way to avoid this path. Do you think we did the right thing? He asked Lisa one evening. Walking out, starting all this. Lisa considered the question carefully. I think we did the only thing we could do. They gave us a choice between accepting our status as nothing or fighting for something better. We chose to fight. Maybe there was another path somewhere. But if there was, I cannot see it. And where does this path lead? That depends on the Council. They can still choose to treat us as equals. If they do, this ends peacefully. If they choose pride over wisdom, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Somewhere in Council space, Counselor Mira was continuing her investigation. She had found disturbing patterns in the human merchant activity. Their ships were not randomly distributed. They were positioned near every major communication hub, every critical supply depot, every strategic junction in the Council's infrastructure. It was not a trading network. It was a targeting network. Mira tried to warn the Council, but no one wanted to listen. They were too busy arguing about the corruption scandal, too distracted by the embarrassment of the communication disruptions, too confident that a primitive species could never pose a real threat. She could only watch and wait and hope that wisdom would eventually triumph over arrogance. It would not. The Council's decision was exactly what humanity had predicted. They chose a middle path that made no one happy and solved nothing. They offered humanity something called observer status. It was a meaningless title that carried no voting rights, no protection guarantees, and no real change in how humans would be treated. Ambassador Daniel Porter had reluctantly agreed to return to the negotiating table. He listened to the offer with a face that showed nothing of what he was thinking inside. This is not acceptable, he said simply. It is what the Council has agreed to offer. High Arbiter Xalanth replied. We suggest humanity accept it as a foundation for future talks. With respect, High Arbiter, Humanity is done with talks. We came to you 3 years ago asking for simple justice. You gave us contempt. We came back with evidence of corruption in your own ranks. You offered us empty gestures. What exactly would make you understand that we are serious? Zolan's 4 eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It is a question. Humans are very good at learning. We have learned that the Council does not respond to reason or evidence or requests for fairness. We are curious what you do respond to. Before Zolanth could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the station. The main display screen flickered and filled with reports. All across Council space, human merchant ships were dropping their disguises. Hidden weapon systems were appearing from beneath cargo containers. And in 17 different locations, critical Council infrastructure was under attack. But not the kind of attack anyone expected. The human ships did not fire at the stations they approached. Instead, they sent small teams of specially trained soldiers onto the stations. These soldiers moved through the corridors with frightening speed and precision. They took control of command centers, engineering sections, and communication hubs. Within hours, humanity controlled the 17 most important logistics points in the entire Council network. Nobody died. The humans used weapons that knocked people unconscious instead of killing them. They disabled security systems and locked station personnel in safe rooms rather than harming them. It was a surgical strike, precise beyond anything the Council had ever seen. In the Council chamber, the military commanders were receiving frantic reports from all across their territories. They have taken the Indari relay station, Admiral Saren reported. Her voice was shaking. That hub handles 40% of all Valori communications. The fuel depot at Krethminer is under their control, Vorthak snarled. Without it, our frontier fleets cannot operate. Similar reports came from other species. The humans had found every pressure point in the Council economy and military structure, and they had seized them all at once. Daniel Porter stood calmly in the middle of the chaos. We did not want this, he said. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. We came to you in peace, asking only for fair treatment. You refused. We showed you that we could reach your systems, hoping you would take us seriously. You offered us scraps. So now we show you what humanity can do when we stop being polite. This is an act of war, Zolanth declared. No high arbiter. This is leverage. Nobody has been killed. No property has been destroyed. We hold these facilities as collateral while we negotiate. When we reach a satisfactory agreement, we will leave. This is actually an act of peace. It is the only kind of peace that the Council seems to understand. You cannot possibly hold these positions, Vorthok said. We will overwhelm you with numbers. But you could try. But every station we hold is connected to explosives. Not to hurt the personnel, who will be evacuated before any explosion, but to completely destroy the infrastructure. Attack us, and you lose everything. Negotiate with us, and you get it all back. The chamber fell silent. President Catherine Walsh's face appeared on the main screen, broadcast from Earth. Members of the Galactic Council, she said. Her tone was measured but firm. Humanity did not seek this confrontation. You forced it upon us with your arrogance and your cruelty. We have spent the last 3 years preparing for this moment. Not because we wanted war, but because we understood that peace with you required us to be too dangerous to ignore.
Oh.
What do you want? Zolanth asked. The words seemed to cost him something. What we have always wanted, recognition as equals. Protection for our colonies and trade routes. Justice for those who attacked us and those who allowed those attacks to happen. A seat on this council with full voting rights? These are not unreasonable requests. They are the same rights you give to every member species. The precedent this would establish. The precedent has already been established. Humanity has shown that council power is not absolute. Other species are watching. Some of them have their own complaints. You can make us an example of what happens to those who challenge you. Or you can make us an example of what happens when the council chooses wisdom over pride. The choice is yours. The council debated for 4 days while human forces held their positions. During that time, there were no attacks from either side. No one was hurt. No incidents occurred. The human soldiers treated their prisoners with respect, even friendliness. Medical needs were taken care of. Food was provided. It was in every way except one remarkably civilized occupation. General Vorthok argued constantly for a military response. We cannot let them dictate terms to us. We are the Council. We are the power in this galaxy. We were the power, Admiral Cern replied quietly. Until a species we dismissed as vermin proved, they could shut down our entire logistics network without killing a single person. What do you think they could do if they decided to actually kill people, General? Vorthok had no answer. Counselor Mira spent those 4 days talking privately with the human ambassador. She had seen this coming, even if she could not stop it. Now she was trying to find a way forward that would leave everyone's dignity intact. Your people have made your point, she told Daniel. The Council is frightened. Some are angry, but most are simply confused. They do not understand how this happened. They do not understand because they never tried to understand us, Daniel replied. They looked at our technology and saw weakness. They looked at our short lifespans and saw insignificance. They never looked at our history. They never noticed that we have been fighting against superior enemies for our entire existence as a species, and we have never lost. Not permanently. Not when it mattered. And what happens now? That depends on the Council. We have no desire to rule anyone. We have no interest in empire. We simply want to be treated as equals. Give us that, and this ends today. Refuse us, and he shrugged. We are very patient, Counselor, and we have a long memory. On the 5th day, the Council voted. It was not unanimous. It was not even close to unanimous. But enough species had seen enough evidence. Enough leaders had done enough calculations. Fighting humanity would be costly, painful, and uncertain. Accepting them as equals was simply acknowledging reality. The motion passed. Humanity had won. The Treaty of Vareth Prime was signed on a cool autumn day by Earth's calendar. Ambassador Daniel Porter represented humanity. High Arbiter Zolanth represented the Council. And around them, the representatives of 37 other species watched as history was changed forever. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes the United Human Federation as a full member, species with all rights and responsibilities. Zolanth read from the formal document. His voice was flat, showing no emotion. Human colonies and trade routes shall receive the same protection as those of any Council member. Past actions against humanity shall be investigated by an independent court, and proper compensation shall be made. Daniel signed the document. His hand did not shake. Humanity has no desire to control this Council, he said. We never wanted power over others. We simply refuse to accept having no power over ourselves. We hope this marks the beginning of a real partnership, one built on mutual respect rather than who is older or who has better technology. Pretty words, General Vorthok muttered from his seat, but there was no conviction in his voice. The general had been removed from his command. His corruption had been exposed. His military career was finished. He would spend his remaining years in comfortable exile, wondering how a species of vermin had defeated the greatest military mind of the Kreth Empire. The human soldiers withdrew. From the 17 stations they had captured, they left everything exactly as they had found it. They even apologized to the personnel they had detained, explaining that it was nothing personal. Several station commanders admitted, privately, that the humans had treated them better than their own governments sometimes did. In the months that followed, humanity's place in the Council was established more smoothly than anyone expected. Human innovations, once dismissed as primitive, found uses that Council scientists had never imagined. Human diplomats, trained in the complicated politics of their own world, proved skilled at handling the complex relationships between species. Human soldiers, no longer seen as a joke, were respected for their determination and creativity. Admiral Lisa Grant was appointed as humanity's first military representative to the Council fleet. On her first day, she met with Admiral Seren of the Valor. I must admit, Seren said, I did not believe humans capable of what you achieved. Our intelligence said you were decades behind us in technology. We are, Lisa replied. probably more than decades in some areas. But technology is not everything. You designed your security systems to protect against threats you understood. You never imagined that someone would use merchant ships as a spy network, or that a species would spend 3 years planning one coordinated strike. We did not beat you with technology. We beat you with patience and spite. Saren made a sound that might have been laughter. I think I am going to enjoy working with humans. Back on Earth, President Catherine Walsh addressed the species one final time in her role as wartime leader. The next election would bring new leadership, new priorities, a new chapter in human history. But this moment belonged to her. We've done something that has never been done before, she said. Not through having bigger weapons, which we do not have. Not through having better ships, which we do not have. We succeeded through unity, through determination, and through an absolute refusal to accept that our lives and our futures could be dismissed as unimportant. The galaxy knows us now. Some fear us. Some respect us. Some still look down on us, though they are more careful about saying it out loud. But nobody, not anymore, dismisses us, and that is something worth everything we went through. Daniel Porter watched the speech from his office on the council station. He would serve as humanity's permanent ambassador there for the next 10 years. The view from his window showed the stars, countless points of light representing worlds and species and civilizations beyond counting. Somewhere out there, a child on a human colony was looking up at those same stars, dreaming of the future. That child would grow up in a galaxy where humanity had a voice, where human lives mattered, where the Galactic Council was not a distant, contemptuous authority but a partnership of equals. That was what they had fought for. That was what they had won. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, the insults in the council chamber, the months of preparation, the careful strikes that had shown council weakness without causing deaths, the tense days of negotiation while human soldiers held critical stations, and finally, the vote that had changed everything. It had not been a traditional victory. Humanity had not conquered territory or destroyed enemy fleets. They had simply made it clear that ignoring them was no longer an option. They had proved that treating them as lesser beings would have consequences. They had shown that the price of dismissing human lives was higher than the price of respecting them. Some species still resented humanity for what they had done. General Vorthok spent his exile writing bitter memoirs that blamed everyone except himself for the Kreth humiliation. A few council members privately grumbled that humans had cheated their way to membership instead of earning it properly. But most of the galaxy had learned something important. Humanity might be young. They might be technologically behind. They might have short lives and fragile bodies. But underestimating them was a mistake that would only be made once. Counselor Mira of the Telvanni became one of humanity's strongest supporters on the council. She had seen what was coming before anyone else, and she respected the careful planning that had made it possible. Your species is going to change this galaxy, she told Daniel at a diplomatic reception. I am not sure if that is good or bad, but it will certainly be interesting. Daniel smiled. We do not want to change anything. We just want to be part of it. This is what you say now? But your people have something that most species lose after a few thousand years. You still have hunger. You still have drive. You still believe that tomorrow can be better than today? That kind of energy does not sit still. It builds things. It explores. It grows. She was right, of course. In the decades that followed, humanity did not simply take their seat at the council table and stay quiet. They expanded, explored, innovated. They built alliances with species who had also felt overlooked by the old powers. They pushed for reforms that made the council more fair to younger species. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. But on that first day, standing in his office and looking at the stars, Daniel Porter was not thinking about the future. He was thinking about a colony called New Harmony and the families who had died there. He was thinking about Captain Samuel Kent, whose last transmission had been a plea for help. He was thinking about all the humans who had suffered because the galaxy had considered them unimportant. We did this for you, he thought. We made sure it would never happen again. Then he turned back to his desk, where a stack of diplomatic documents waited. The work was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts and compromises and difficult decisions. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secured, but keeping it would require all the patience and determination and stubborn creativity that had brought them this far. The galaxy had made a mistake when it underestimated humanity. It would not make that mistake again.